Today's the 30th of July, and I'm going to do a tour of the yard. So down by Genesee Street here, down by the side of our end, this far end of the garden, you can see the flowers are coming up and blooming, whether we've weeded or not. Poor things. You see some more zinnias back in there that are being choked out by the weeds. Sunflowers and marigolds, nasturtiums. You can see some of these zinnias are starting to bloom. The giant zinnias. The artichokes have been in full bloom for a couple of weeks. These are totally done blooming, and you can see some opening up there. A happy bee out already, playing in the blossom. Two bees. These are a bright blue, brilliant blue blossom. So these that have bloomed, now they're maturing their seeds. At the bottom of each one of these little guys, there's a seed. We have some cantaloupe. The Suffolk red grapes look really nice now. The peas are totally ripe. A week ago we picked about a quart. Today that whole row is just filled out and totally ripe, and that's what I'll be doing when I get done with this video, is picking peas. The new Hebotops are filling in just fine. The beans have started to make beans, but they're only about an inch long. Not quite ready to pick. The Concord grapes are nice. They're filling out. This row hasn't been pruned at all since I did my initial pruning. Some carrots, some beets, a few onions, tons of peppers, absolutely tons of peppers. Poblanos, Anaheims, bell peppers, jalapenos. The Primark Freedoms could use a little weeding. We've tried to keep up on that, and that row is getting ahead of us again. We have some Autumn Britain. The Autumn Britain and the Polana raspberries here are totally loaded. This is the fall crop. Remember, both of these were cut off in the spring, totally cut off to the ground. This is all new growth. This is all new growth, and they are beginning to fruit. All down the row you can start to see red. Some of these, I would say the Polana is ahead of the Autumn Britain by about maybe a week. They're loaded, but they're not quite as filled out yet. Our paste tomato row. But just look at the tons of berries on those Polanas. Our slicing tomato row. This is 5 feet, 5.5 feet, almost 6 feet tall. Some of those berries are, or some of those tomatoes are 6 feet tall. And these Polana are 6 feet tall. The Autumn Britain, on the other hand, are only about 4 feet tall this year. The Willamette raspberries are on this far end, just past the tomato cage. These are all Willamettes down here on this end. And I don't think we'll see any blossoms since they're a early year bearing raspberry. They're not ever bearing. Our sweeties are starting to ripen. Little sweetie tomatoes you can see down in there. This plant's almost 5 feet tall. It doesn't get quite as much sun back in here. Let's go back out this way. Doesn't get quite as much sun as the, this is a Sweet 100, and it's totally filled out, 6 feet tall, 4 feet wide. I've pruned it 3 times, and there's beginning to be red fruit down in there. We've probably picked 10 or 12 tomatoes, maybe 20. The cucumber row is filling out very nicely. Many of the plants are 4 feet tall and producing. Yes, beginning to produce. So let's see. Here's an Armenian. These slicers, you can see some slicer cucumbers here. There's 2 or 3 in there. There's another one. There's another one down in there. We have a bag of them in the fridge. Here's a small one filling out. I have a bag of them in the fridge, and so until we need them, we don't come pick them, and they'll stay fresher on the vine. Look at all of these, just loaded right there. And a friend of ours brought over some pots, and he is taking the runners for the strawberries and setting them. They're stapled in these little pots, and he comes and waters them every day, and they're starting to grow. You can see some new growth here on it. And when they get, established for another week or so, he'll cut them off and take all these pots home and take care of them at his house, because that's 5 miles from here, 4 miles from here. But the strawberries are just completely loaded. This is the end of July. For a couple of weeks there wasn't anything at all. It had finished its first crop, and now we're in our second crop. But you can see blossoms galore and fruit everywhere. Look at all the blossoms. Wow. All kinds of fruit in there. We've been picking for a week, and now we can pick probably 10 pounds, 20 pounds, even 30 pounds of strawberries in there. Our 360-foot double rows. The potatoes are winding down, it looks like. They're starting to brown out. We haven't tried to dig any. We'll do that. We'll find time to go dig some potatoes. Our July bearing raspberries, the Canbies, and the Titans are 9 feet tall, 10 feet tall over here, and 9 feet tall on the Canbies. And there are still a few raspberries. You can see they're still making some raspberries. Being the 30th of July, that means they've produced all of July and for about 10 days into June. That's 5 weeks of production, and that's quite a lengthy time for these raspberries to produce. Some years we only get 4 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks. But 5 weeks is really nice. You can see all the yellowing. All this older stuff is about done, and when that happens, so next week or so, we will start cutting all of these tall canes. Those are 9 feet tall back in there. All those tall canes will be cut back to 4 feet, and all of the old canes will be cut totally out since they're done producing. The squash row really took off. I need to check to make sure we don't have squash bugs in here, and I haven't done that for a couple days. It looks like that plant's not doing so well, like there may be some bugs in it. But the zucchini is filling out with both the green and the yellow zucchini, and straight neck. Here's a nice straight neck squash we've been picking. And spaghetti squash, you can see. They're a little young to be picking. Here's another straight neck set. Lots of spaghetti squash in there. Look at all the squash. Yeah, it's just loaded up with squash. Wow. There's a couple of those. And some butternut. All this is spaghetti squash. Yep. A big banana squash is forming down here. Nice. That's over a foot long. And there might be one butternut, but it's getting a slow start. And we have our new blackberry row. Everything is still green. Look, some of this that we transplanted is fruiting. That's almost a 60-foot row of blackberries. Then we have broccoli. And broccoli bolted. It's been 100 degrees. Tomorrow and the next day are supposed to be 106. And the little broccoli heads, we can still find a few like that. Like that. There's another one. So we can still come out and get some broccoli, but it's not nearly as, like all of this should have been picked a long time ago, but we spent a week on the Canadian border and most of it went to seed. There's a nice little head there. Yeah, we could find enough for a meal. Those aren't too bad. There's some that are filling out. Take those little florets and take them in. The black raspberries have been totally done for 2 or 3 weeks. These are Joan Jay. They're probably even behind the Autumn Britain, or close to even with the Autumn Britain in bloom timing. Then we have Hebotop, and Hebotop, these are beginning to fruit, and they're either in line with the Polana or ahead of the Polana. You see, they're massive berries. Look at the size of these things. Yeah, we've got ripening berries all up and down the row. I could probably come out and pick today, in fact. That's nice to see. Same with the Polana. There's a couple of smaller bowls of berries out there. Our little okra, they seem to be kind of slow to grow. These aren't even 10 inches tall yet. And our corn. 2 rows of corn and a pumpkin over there. We took the rest out because they weren't doing well at all. I think there was a problem with our watering system. Back here we have 2 apple trees. The apples are filling out. There's tons of apples in there. This is a Brayburn, kind of a blushy, larger apple. We don't know the type of apple this tree is, but it's also loaded. In there, maybe you could even use some thinning. And all the apples on this side. Our pear trees are also loaded, and the pears are filling out very nicely. There's still some thinning we can do. This should probably only have 2. Here's 6 that should only have 4, maybe 3 even. So we're needing to go through the trees. This other pear tree is the same way. Look at them hang down, clear down to the ground. That's 4 feet above the ground, hanging down here under the weight of the fruit. And some fruit starting to fall in windstorms. That's good for self-thinning. Some of these little ones like that, they could be pulled out. There's another one that's not very developed, an odd shape. We could pull it out and thin it. Our new Reliance peach trees we planted 3 years ago are about at least 10 feet tall and 5 feet wide. Our main blackberry patch we've had for quite a number of years is in full production. We picked about 2 quarts a week ago and haven't picked much since, and I could come out here and pick at least 4 quarts now. There's a lot of red, but if you start picking, you find all the black ones. Lots of blackberries are ripe. So fun. Look at it. They're just totally loaded with ripe berries up in there. And more to come. Still ripening.